The cast of Million Dollar Listing LA and Million Dollar Listing New York have both been hit in a big way after an announcement from Fredrik Eklund that he will be leaving the franchise after being involved since the series' debut back in 2012. This came as a bit of a shock for anybody who's a huge fan of the show because Fredrik has kind of been one of the main characters of the series, especially the New York series where he first got started. But as a man who heads one of the top producing real estate teams in the country and now has a family with 2 young kids, I guess it was time for him to just get out of the spotlight and start focusing on other things. In today's video, we're going to talk about who Fredrik Eklund is, how he got into the impressive position that he's in today, and last we'll cover what led to this big decision of his to leave the Million Dollar Listing franchise. So let's get into it, but really quick introduction in case you're new around here. My name is Scott. I'm a real estate developer myself out of Arizona. So here on my channel, we cover all things real estate and we dive into headlines just like this Fredrik news that we're talking about today. Think about hitting the subscribe button down below if you're into that kind of thing. I'm putting new videos out every week. Fredrik Eklund was born on April 26, 1977, which makes him 44 years old today. He was born in Akalla, Sweden, which is a small suburb in Stockholm, which as the capital of Sweden is the most populated urban area in the Northern Europe country. While Fredrik is now known as a wildly successful and bi-coastal real estate broker, he actually started his working life in the adult film industry, although he says he only spent about a week in total in this industry, spread out over about a year before he realized he wanted to pursue other things. In 2004, at the age of 27, Fredrik moved to New York City to pursue a career in real estate. This was a pretty bold move because the market in New York has always been very competitive for real estate agents. It's also very lucrative as New York real estate agents are among the highest paid in the nation, making an average salary of almost $90,000 as of the last report. The process of becoming a real estate agent in New York City is pretty straightforward, just like anywhere else in the US. You need to complete 75 hours worth of coursework through an approved school. You need to pass a final exam. You need to pass a background check, and you need to be sponsored by a broker. Many real estate agents will eventually become real estate brokers, which is exactly what Fredrik ultimately did. Becoming a broker requires just a couple additional steps. You need to be at least 20 years old. You need to have worked as a real estate agent for 2 years. You need to complete another 120 hours worth of coursework. You need to pass another final exam, and you need to pass another background check. One of the reasons that the real estate agent market in the US is so competitive is because it really only takes a couple months worth of studies and about $500 to become an agent. So the barrier to entry is very low, but that does not mean that the job is easy. You really need to work your butt off to make a name for yourself as a real estate agent, especially an agent in New York City. Anyways, back to Fredrik. He really proved himself as a real estate agent in New York City right away. By 2005, after only being at his first brokerage, JC Dinero, for a year, he had already done about $50 million in business, and he was nominated for Rookie of the Year by the Real Estate Board of New York. Fredrik says that his early success was fueled by 3 things. First, he was an early adopter of tech, and he was one of the first agents to use a BlackBerry. Second, he worked long hours. He was putting 85 hours per weekend to stay ahead of the competition. And last, he has always put a really heavy focus on new development in his business, because if he got to take on a new development deal, that usually meant that he got to represent every unit in that building. All that hard work has definitely paid off for Fredrik. To this day, he is still ranked as one of the top real estate teams in New York City, even after he has since moved his family out to LA. Fredrik is a broker under one of the biggest real estate companies in New York. They're called Douglas Elliman, and he has a large team with his business partner, John Gomez, who is also another highly successful and highly respected real estate broker in New York. The profile page on Fredrik says that he and John have emerged as Manhattan's brokers to the stars, which I was able to confirm. He has represented people like Paul Rudd, Ben Stiller, John Legend, and Jessica Alba. Like we talked about earlier, Fredrik started his career targeting new development deals, and he still puts a ton of focus on new development to this day. Not only is a new development deal going to be easier to sell because all of the units are literally brand new, but also if you think about it, new development projects generally have dozens or even hundreds of units. So if you're an agent who gets to take on an entire new development project, that is going to boost your sales volume a ton. Looking at the listing section for Fredrik's team on Douglas Elliman's webpage, you'll see some big price properties in New New York right off the bat. I mean, we've got $75 million here at 432 Park. We've got a new $63 million listing in Midtown. There's a $60 million listing they have in the East Hamptons. Another $60 million listing in Wainscott. Another Midtown listing on Billionaires Row. This one for $46 million. You get the point here. Fredrik's reputation has clearly awarded him with some very high ticket listings. These are not the type of listings you're gonna get as a broker in New York unless you are highly respected and trusted in the industry. And what's interesting about the role of a real estate broker as well, which is what Fredrik is on these deals, is that he doesn't even need to personally be the listing agent on these properties in order to make money. In New York, on those higher ticket price points like we were just looking at, the average commission that the brokers are going to be paid is around 5% of the total sales price, which ends up being 2.5% that goes to the buyer's agent and another 2.5% that goes to the seller's agent. Well, if the seller's agent is working under a real estate broker, they're going to need to split their 2.5% with that broker. So if we look at Fredrik's $79 million listing at 432 Park Avenue, just as an example, it looks like he has one of his salespeople, Ryan Stenta, assigned to this deal. In theory, since Ryan is the actual listing agent, Ryan's probably the one doing most of the work with open houses, marketings, and showings. Well, if this deal does end up selling for $79 million, the Eklund Gomez team is going to be bringing in about $1.975 million in commissions. We don't know the specific cut up of the commissions with the Eklund Gomez team, but my guess is that it's split 3 ways. So that means that the listing agent Ryan will get $650,000 for his work on the deal. And then the brokers above Ryan, John and Fredrik, will also get $650,000 each just for being the brokers who work above Ryan. Even though I'm making it sound like Fredrik and John are just kicking back and collecting a check on deals like this, the reality is that they're probably very involved on these deals, just acting as a sounding board and a mentor figure to the agents who actually have the listings. What Fredrik is most known for at this point by far is his role in the Bravo TV show $1 Million Listing New York. If you're not familiar with the series, there is a New York City version and a Los Angeles version, both which basically just follow around a handful of top real estate agents documenting their life selling multi-million-dollar homes, including working with buyers, working with sellers, and working with other agents in town. Fredrik has starred in the New York series since it started back in 2012. He is one of only 2 original cast members, and he's been in a total of 108 episodes. The show is naturally pretty dramatic, just like any reality TV show, but I've been watching it myself for years because even though there is some drama, they really put a lot of focus on the real estate agents and the properties themselves. Fredrik's character on the show was definitely loud, dramatic, and eccentric sometimes, but that's part of what made him so entertaining and such a successful real estate agent. He was always either making people laugh or driving them nuts, so he really did make for a great member of the cast, and as a viewer, he was kind of hard not to like. Through watching this show, you really got to know all of these real estate agents on a pretty personal level as they bought homes for themselves, they got married, they traveled, or they had children. Probably one of the most special moments on the show for Fredrik was back in late 2017 when he and his partner Derek welcomed their 2 children, Freddie and Mila, into the world via a surrogate. These were Fredrik's first children, and right from the start, he was pretty vocal about how challenging it was to bring 2 kids into the world that he was absolutely obsessed with, while also having this thriving career as a broker and a TV star that was constantly demanding of his time. I don't have children myself, so I can't totally relate to this, but I can only imagine the effects of being a new dad and needing to work 70 to 80 hours per week. It's gotta be exhausting and not sustainable. In 2019, Fredrik made the decision to move his family from New York to Los Angeles as he expanded his brokerage to the West Coast. It actually kind of happened by accident because in 2020, when the pandemic hit, Fredrik happened to be out in Los Angeles checking in on his new brokerage team, and he ended up actually getting stuck out there for a little while as the world shut down and all these travel restrictions were put in place. After spending a little bit more time in California, he got drawn to the city more than he already was, and that helped him solidify his decision to move out to LA for good. Naturally, since Fredrik was already a star on $1 Million Listing New York, Bravo offered him to join the cast of $1 Million Listing LA, which he accepted. Within a year, he was already doing multi-million-dollar deals in California, and he was doing everything that he could to build relationships with local agents and local cast members out there. Fredrik brought the same larger-than-life energy that he always had in $1 Million Listing New York to the $1 Million Listing LA series. I watched his entire LA season and it was really good, but I'm not going to lie, Fredrik was not all that received by the LA cast. He ended up butting heads with almost every single agent on the show at some point during that season, and you could totally tell that the drama was starting to take a toll on him. Well, just a few months later, in January of 2022, Fredrik made the announcement that he was leaving the $1 Million franchise for good after 11 years on the show. With Fredrik being one of the original members of the cast, plus being one of the most liked and controversial members of the cast, plus being the only bi-coastal member of the cast, this was definitely a big deal for Bravo. The news was first announced to the world via Instagram, where Fredrik said, "After an amazing 11 years, I've decided it's time for the next chapter of my life and to leave $1 Million Listing. It's an end of an era and a new start for me. I let Andy, the producers, and the executives know last week how grateful I am. Eternally grateful. I mean, what an incredible run we had together. All of my most memorable milestones from the last decade I shared with all of you. Meeting Derek, our wedding, the miscarriages, the birth of our twins, and all the beautiful properties. I will always cherish that shared experience." There was an overwhelming amount of support on the post, with his followers complimenting that he is a legend, that they are proud of him, that they will miss him, and that the show won't be the same without him. That response in the comments section was not surprising to me at all. It just goes to show that even though Fredrik was wrapped up in a lot of hype and drama on the show itself, he was still very liked and well respected by the viewers. I feel like there are some people out there in this world who are just superhuman when it comes to work ethic, and Fredrik Eklund is definitely one of those people. Since he started his real estate career in 2004, he has been working tirelessly to grow his business and make a name for himself. And even though this latest news is about him closing the door on the $1 Million Listing chapter of his life, I'm sure it won't be long before we see Fredrik's name in the news again with his next big venture. If you enjoyed the video today, guys, if you could hit that like button down below before you go, it really helps me out a lot. And don't forget to click subscribe if you're not already a subscriber, because I'm putting new videos out every week. But that's all I've got for you guys this time. So until next time, see ya.